Hello everyone, this is Coach Oliver once again. Welcome to day number one of the FIDE Grand Prix 2022 back in Berlin. And today, of course, will feature our very own Wesley So's first game against Sam Shankland. Both players are representing the United States of America. Alright, Wesley So was black. He was able to hold the draw. It's still the first game, so the result is desirable. Let's check it out. Sam went 44. Wesley played knight f6. Shankland went for c4. e6 for Wesley. Knight c3, bishop b4. Alright, we have the Nimzo Indian. When we have this bishop e6, knight c3, knight f6, and d4, c4, that's the Nimzo Indian defense. Sam went for queen c2. Wesley castles. a3. The early exchange for bishop and knight. White gets the bishop here, right, but moving the queen twice in the opening. Okay, black plays d5 with control of the important e4 square. Bishop g5, pin to the queen. Wesley breaks the center. It's logical, especially when the opponent's king is still in the middle on e1. Okay, d takes e5, d4. Alright, white's problem at the moment is this rook, knight, and bishop. So it's all about development. Here, Shankland went for queen f3. Okay, in January, in Tata Steel, Rapport went for queen g3 against Pragnananda, right? Prag went for knight bd7, knight f3, e5, rook d1, rook e8, and b4. And I believe Wesley was also prepared with this line. So Sam went for the quiet queen f3, an equal line. Knight goes to bd7, of course, protecting f6, developing the knight. e3 was played by white, h6. Bishop takes f6, knight takes f6. Here, Shankland went for knight e2. That's actually a novelty in this position. Carlsen played castles here against Aronian. And some other players, they go for castling instantly on the queen side. Yep. And then here, black plays e5 only, then you go for knight e2. Bishop g4 coming up, queen g3. Then you have knight e4, or black can also go for d3 in this position. White simply plays f3, right? Queen protects e1 so that no promotion after take of the knight. Rook goes to c8 here, threatening the c5 pawn. Right. F takes g4. This is quite interesting. Rook takes c5, e4, and the knight takes e4. Queen takes d3. That's queen g5 check. Black sacrifices a pawn, but he gets this exchange on h1, right, or d1, depending on his choice. And it's a dynamic equality for white and black. Okay, but here Sam went for knight e2. Wesley played d3. Okay, knight c3, e5. h3, stopping bishop g4. Bishop e6 for Wesley. Rook to d1. Takes. Okay, white plays it safely. So with this option, I think a draw is inevitable. Bishop takes d3, e4. Discovered attack to the bishop and the rook. Queen a5, hitting that c5 pawn. Takes on d3, queen takes c5. Castles, rook a8, rook fd1. White controls the d file. Okay, white controls the d file. Wesley captured. Rook takes d3, queen b6 attacking b2, queen e2 protecting, rook to d8, knight d5. With knight d5, I think white was expecting at least a slight push or a slight pull in the position, but nothing much is desired here. Queen e6, queen d1, knight takes, okay, rook takes, rook c8. If, let's say, white goes for pawn takes, just queen d6. Okay. Black also has this counterplay of f5 and e4. Basically equal as well. So rook takes d5, rook c8, white controls the d file while black controls the c file. Okay, h4, queen into c6, g3, queen c2, takes, rook to b5, b6. I like this move, rook b5. Okay, it actually not protects b2, but it opens up the attack on the a pawn. After rook takes e5, rook takes b2, rook a check, king h7, and then we have rook e7, hitting both pawns. But Wesley had this f6. Okay, these elite players, they know their end games, right? So rook takes a7, h5, king g2, b5, rook to a5, king to g6, king f3, b4, takes. White is a pawn up. So it's an interesting majority, 4 versus 3, but on the same side of the board. Yeah. And Wesley played a masterful endgame to save it. King f4, rook b2, hitting the pawn on f2, f3, rook to b1, rook d5, staying on the back rank, right? Because if the opponent, let's say, for example, pushes g4, takes, if takes with the pawn, he has this checks from the back. King g3, just keep checking. Yes. If king f3, just keep checking. If the king goes to g2, you're attacking both. Yeah. So that was the main point of staying rook on the first rank. Taras rule, rook behind the pawns. Yeah. So Sam went for rook d6, just rook e1. Wesley stays. He knows his endgame. Okay, not allowing the push on e5. It could have been 3-4-2. Well, so rook d8, staying on the first. White cannot push e5 because of rook a4 check, right? King moves away from protecting the important e5 pawn. Rook h8, rook h1. Nice move. Wesley was anticipating g4. Right, rook takes h4. That was the main point of rook h1. Rook takes h5, rook takes h5. If, for example, the king moves back to g3 to attack the rook, go back to h1. King goes back to g2, go back to h1. It's just a draw. Okay, so rook takes h5, takes, king f5, king h4, just in time. If the king, for example, goes to g6, there's king g3, you take the pawn on g7, take on f3, takes on f6, and then takes on e4. Bare kings on the board. That's perfect draw. Yeah. f4 was played, g5, nice move. Right. If takes, for example, f takes g5, you push, g4, you push, g3, e7, g2, white promotes, black will also promote. You check from behind, just king g3, king g7, king f2, after takes and takes, it will just be the same result. Bare kings on the board. Okay, so e5 takes on f4, nice take. Again, if you take on f6, f3, f7, f2. Now you have to be careful here because if you promote to f8, there's a skewer with f1, but f6. Okay, f1. This will be interesting. King g7. An endgame where queen against pawn. Okay, especially the bishop pawn. If you go, for example, king to g5, f8, right? So if you keep checking, for example, play queen check, king h7, you attack the pawn, king to g8, you check, back to h8, you attack the pawn, king. If you check, now attacking pawn and the king, just king h8. Because if you capture the pawn, that is a stalemate. Alright, not a bad result for Wesley. He drew his first game. In the other matchup in Group C, Predke actually upsets Vasher Lagrave. So Wesley needs to win over Lagrave or Predke, right, to win his group. Okay, it's a double round, Ruben. So Wesley will still play Shankland for another game. He will be playing white in his next game against Sam. So drawing with black is not that bad. Right? It's the first day of the tournament. You're still getting the gist of things, you know. You're not yet comfortable with the atmosphere, with the environment. So that was actually a good start. So we're hoping for the best. Hopefully Wesley goes on to win his next games and qualify for the candidates. There are some, you know, there are some changes because FIDE has just banned Karyakin for 6 months. Karyakin was actually the runner-up in the World Cup. It was Duda who won the World Cup, so it'll still be tricky. Yeah, it might be 3 people from the FIDE Grand Prix to qualify into the candidates. So we'll never know. The best thing is just for Wesley to play his game. Yeah. Just fight it every single game and hope for the best. Also, that was it. We'll continue to support Wesley in his quest for that spot in the candidates, and we'll also continue to feature the FIDE Grand Prix 2022 in Berlin, leg number 3. This is Coach Oliver. Stay safe, everyone.